This week on the Mainly Moonology podcast, we are talking to someone who calls himself a capitalist pig and he's proud of it. I'll be interviewing Steve Larsen, who's kind of equal parts kind of enlightened guy and capitalist pig. So if you want to make more money and you haven't really claimed it yet, I think Steve is going to help you. Hi everybody, before we get into my interview with Stephen J. Larsen, one of the top names in marketing if you're into marketing, but someone who's going to really help you understand how to claim your birthright of abundance. Before we do that though, I wanted to talk about this week in the stars. For a start, it's overall a healing week. We have, at the beginning of the week, we have the sun sextiling Chiron, and we also have Mercury sextiling Chiron and then Venus sextiling Chiron. Now, this is huge if you want healing. Like if you're not interested in being a capitalist pig, for example, it's a very good time to just go out there and think, right, this week is about healing. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be 100% easy, because the truth is that there are also a couple of challenging aspects this week. We've got Mercury squaring Saturn, which is very much about, fighting your own mind, having arguments. Mercury is a communications planet. A square is a tough aspect. Saturn is the planet of lessons and problems and obstacles. So, there could be a bit of, struggling with mental health, not feeling good, negative self-talk, like I said, upsets and arguments. So there is a bit of that. And then we actually end the week with one of the most volatile planetary aspects we ever get, which is Mars squaring Pluto, which is anger and fury and eruptions and all that. But if you do the work, and you go into this week saying, I'm aiming for healing, if you go in there saying, I am ready to heal, I am healing, I am healed, all this, the affirmations are amazing. I'm going to interview someone in a couple of weeks who's going to tell us why affirmations are so amazing from a neuroscientific point of view. But if you go in there going, I am aiming for healing, even if this is where you are now, if you're listening on the podcast, I'm putting my hand low on the screen, where you can also watch this on YouTube. So if you're down the bottom now and up the top is healing, and even if this healing week only shifts you a third of the way or maybe halfway, that's a huge development. So go into this week saying, I'm ready for healing. Don't let people get you down. Don't let negative self-talk get you down. And then hopefully by the end of the week, it's actually on June 11, pretty much wherever you are in the world, the Mars square to Pluto, if you've done the healing work, that could actually be further healing, because even though it's a very, very hard aspect, one of the key words for Pluto is the healing crisis. So if something happens at the end of the week, which is difficult, it can be a healing crisis. All right, I just wanted to draw a quick card as well, if I can find my cards. Here they are. I've got my manifestation cards. If you want healing, say out loud or put in the comments, I want healing. And if you want to be a capitalist pig and you want to know how to manifest more money, put in the comments or say it out loud. Preferably put it in the comments, because then you're really committing. Put in the comments capitalist pig or capitalist pig, that's me, or bring me more money. So if you want healing or you want greater abundance, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to know in order to manifest, be it healing or more money. I'm not going to say both. You need to choose. So I'm going to assume you've chosen. Here we go. It's the first quarter moon in Pisces card. Honor your feelings. So let us just read this. First quarter moon in Pisces. And these are, of course, my beautiful and very best-selling Moonology manifestation cards. So these are really when you want to manifest something. It's what advice do you need? Okay, so, all right, here we go. Aha. So are you putting on a good front, acting like you're bright and breezy, but hiding your real feelings? Rather than acting as though everything is fine, if you're worried about certain issues, it's best to deal with them. So if you wanted healing, it means you need to deal with the issues that you need healing. Maybe it's not just going to happen by itself. And if you want more money to be that capitalist pig, maybe you need to sort of be more open about the fact, I want more money. All right, avoid getting so wrapped up in your feelings that you overwhelm yourself and everyone involved in the situation. If you deny your feelings, you'll go nowhere fast with your manifesting. Look at the big picture and use your intuition and avoid blowing an upset out of proportion. Now, that's really important this week. So feel all your feelings. Making light of your emotions now isn't recommended. Remember, we create with our emotions. So it's really feel your feelings, work through them, and then you will not be blowing things out of proportion, and then you're going to be a more powerful manifester. And these cards all have a little bit of information about whichever card comes up, how to tune into your manifesting power. So remember, if you're manifesting healing or being a capitalist pig, and we'll cover both in the future. Don't worry if you chose healing and now you're thinking, I should have chosen more money, or vice versa. The crown chakra is located on the top of your head, and its color is a majestic violet. This chakra connects you with source and helps you to find direction when you need it. So in order to manifest whatever it is that you want to manifest, imagine bathing in a column of radiant violet light and just breathe. Okay, so let's just do that just quickly. Just close your eyes, breathe in. And as you breathe out, imagine a beautiful, vibrant column of violet light coming down over you. And it does say, which you can't do unless you've got the cards, but it does say, hold this card to your crown and call in its energies with this incantation. Energies of the first quarter moon in Pisces, thank you for showing me that I am divine. There we go. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to hand you over to Steve Larsen. I am a huge fan of his marketing, and I hope you enjoy the story from someone who unashamedly calls himself a capitalist pig. So my guest this week is someone quite extraordinary who's helped me more than he knows. Starting out as a professional sales funnel builder 10 years ago, Steve J. Larsen has built a massive following of 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs. He's known for his track record of successful internet marketing methods, to say the least. And if you are thinking about starting your own business, healing business, Reiki business, astrology, moonology, whatever, you're going to want to listen to this. The most recent of his forays into marketing is called Dramatics Demonstrations, a book he's currently co-authoring with the amazing Russell Brunson. If you don't know who Russell Brunson is, if you're running your own business, you need to find out. Just Google him, Google ClickFunnels, Google Sales Funnels, Google Steve Larsen, and you will honestly start out on the right track. Steve is most known for his unique market disruption flywheel, a CMO concept he created to automate daily lead flow. Now, that to me is double Dutch, Steve, but I'm just going to leave it hanging for the people who know. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show, Steve.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So good to have you here. So I'm just going to launch right in, okay? So you are one of the most successful internet marketers in the world, I would say. I mean, you've got to be, in terms of recognition, I don't know about sales. I know Russell Brunson's making like $8 million a month. So, he's sort of like up there, and we have, the likes of Dean Graziosi and so on. But you are really, like, let's say next generation lead guy, in my opinion. I know plenty of people who would like to be Steve J. Larsen. And let's talk about ethical selling, okay? Because I don't know you that at all. I've never met you before, but I know your character a bit. And I know that you are a good guy. You just come across as a good guy, okay? So a lot of people struggle with the concept of selling because they're good guys, okay? They fear they could come off as slimy or manipulative. What are your top strategies for helping break through that mindset? Let's hear. And remember, a lot of the people listening probably want to start a healing business, or, they work in the woo-woo space, as you might call it. And, in that space, sometimes people like me even get criticism of like, why do you even charge? You shouldn't charge for what you do. You're helping people.
Yeah, it's a very fair question, and I'm glad to be here. And I'll start by saying that I was one of those guys about 5 years ago that did think that the woo-woo stuff was kind of crazy, and then life proceeded to hand me life, and I went through a very painful but eye-opening healing journey for sure. And I feel like it's one of the reasons my content has been so effective is because I've been trying to blend awareness with these concepts, and it's been making it go further faster with less energy. You know what I mean? So I'll just start by that anyway. But no, I actually went through this very same thing, and it was a big challenge for me because I actually, you know how Batman became Batman because he's afraid of bats, and he's like, I'm gonna
Okay.
become what I'm afraid of. That's why I'm
Ah,
wearing my capitalist pig shirt underneath here, That's a
yeah.
little bit why I went into that is because I knew that I had money false beliefs, and I became aware of them. I also became aware of the fact that I had an inappropriate relationship with money, and that money is really just a time collapser. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with money, but I also realized that the intention behind it matters a lot. I had this weird conception that a rich person just became a jerk, and then one day I realized that there are poor jerks, and I was like, it has nothing to do with money. And then I was like, wait, there's also really cool rich people. There's also really cool poor people. Money has nothing to do with it. All it is the amplifier of your character. And that's what's scary is you're getting a lot of resources and time back that most people don't have. You start to very easily see what you naturally can kind of sometimes regress to. That's where you enter what I call the school of money, where it's not really about the cash, but it's just this really clear mirror to you. Like, here's what to work on. Did you know you have terrible habits? Did you know right? You couldn't afford to have terrible habits when you were poor. Now that you're rich, like, and so it just exposes and lets you start to buff out these things in yourself. I think that's the beauty of it. I realized that money was controlling me because I had somewhat of a fear and subservient relationship with it. I had to step backwards and say that, you know what? It actually is true that having a degree of fame and money lets you spread messages better. And so I feel like that's
Yeah.
my purpose for the next little bit is just to make a lot of money for something I can't quite see yet.
So, did you grow up with money?
Not really. I am the oldest of six kids. If you wanted to go to the movies, you worked. I had tons of labor jobs as a kid. My dad grew up on a milk farm. I mean, I worked a lot growing up. So we weren't poor, but we weren't rich.
And so, when you said you had a slightly difficult relationship with money, how did that like show itself? What did you do about it?
I believed that unless it was hard, it wasn't worth it. It had to be challenging. I had to leave everything on the altar, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like I really, and that's just not true. But it does teach. In fact, I was just teaching this to my three daughters. I was driving them to school, and I was saying, "Did you guys know that you get exactly what you look for in life, not necessarily what's true? You get what you look for." And we spent the whole drive to school talking about this. And I said, you have an actual part of the brain, the RAS receptors, that just looks for proof of what you believe. I was creating an environment that didn't need to be. And I was doing it because of just all these false beliefs in my mind. So I just chose to look for something different. And as simple as it sounds, it does change your life.
So, one of the things that really helped me on my business journey was a man who's since passed away, unfortunately, called Jonathan Caner. And I interviewed him because I used to be a journalist and then I kind of segued into what I do now, and which is astrology and moonology. And I remember interviewing him, and he told me that his business at the time was worth £50 million a year. And for me, in a way, it was like a paradigm breaker of like, oh, okay, so you actually don't need to be starving to do this work. So I know with you, and you are not here because you work for Russell Brunson, who's one of my heroes. You are here because I am an admirer of yours, okay? But you
Oh,
did
thank you.
work with Russell Brunson, who is, such a force of nature in the marketing space. And again, if you want to run your own business, look these guys up because they will guide you on how to get your message out. But do you think working with him, who was sort of a mentor for you, definitely took you under his wing? Certainly, you were his favorite at one point, and maybe you still are. I don't know. But do you think that, and in a way, I'm asking this for other people to think, okay, maybe I need a mentor. We can't all have Russell Brunson or Jonathan Cainer, but did that show you actually, okay, I can do this? It is possible to like just succeed, and it maybe doesn't have to be so hard work, although I'm pretty sure he works pretty hard.
I think that a mentor is one of the other fastest ways to collapse time. I have a marketing degree from college, but I really don't feel like I went to school until I worked for Russell, which is, very understandable. It's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to go to the class of doing it, where you learn all the little intricacies. Russell's so naturally gifted at some of these things. He's not a very detailed guy. I'm a very high C on the disc test. I'm a manifesting generator, and so I sit next to him because I'm a details and processes guy. I would catch it and organize it. In fact, I was talking to them right before getting on with you about this. I do believe, number one, that finding a mentor or someone to follow as fast as possible is one of the quickest things that you can do. Learning directly from the author instead of just from the book. They're both valuable, but they're both different. The second thing, though, is just this absolute undying hunger. And I just have never figured out how to teach that. And I wanted it. And I would go into his office every day and I would tell him, give me your hardest thing. And the first few times I did this, he was always like, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, whatever you don't look forward to doing today, I want it. Give it to me. And he would be like, what? And I did that just about every day for the whole time I worked for him. And he just got used to it. And so he kept giving me the hard tasks, but I knew that it would make me a diamond. And so there's a little bit of this, like the mentor thing is great, but it's only 20% of it. The other is just undying obsession.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do believe
before we started recording, I was telling you about, at one point I particularly remember listening to videos or listening to your podcasts, which you could plug right now, actually. What is your podcast called these days? Is it Sales Funnel Radio still?
There's a new one that's way more aware called just Steve Larsen, where I talk more about mind stuff.
Right. And I remember I was going through this phase of being obsessed with, I've got to get this business up and running, and I knew marketing was the key, and I felt that. And it is true, it's not something you can teach. And some people just don't have it, and what should they do? Should they just get a job?
I actually learned this after I left my job. I decided to go build an event space, and it was right at the beginning of, I'm just going to say it, of the scamdemic. I'm always going to call it that. It was right at the beginning of it, and all my bank funding fell out. And so I had to self-fund this thing, and I thought it was going to cost $300,000. It ended up costing $800,000, and it was so intense. And I remember as I watched my contracts with the banks fall out, but they're already cutting concrete and that they're already bashing down walls. I just remember there was this moment that I sat down and I asked myself if the environment that I was being invited to was much bigger than me. And if I allowed the growth pains in my life, it would grow me faster than my willpower could. And that's the key, I think, of tough environments, is that if we're not hungry innately, I don't know that every one of us is forced to go do all these things, right, in our lives. We each have our own path. But I do think, though, that there's some lessons that life might want to teach us, and it will put us in tough environments that are larger than us because it'll grow us faster than our willpower would.
So what did you do? I mean, what happened? And how much does resilience come into it when you're up against it like that with you building an event space and suddenly it all goes wrong? What happened? What did you do? And what did you learn?
A mentality that it was a game. Otherwise, before that, it was kind of an oppressor. Became really heavy on my shoulders. And something I kind of started beating myself with, it became kind of a whip. I kind of beat myself up with it a little bit. But as soon as I learned to look at it like a game, that's a different energy. And you just behave differently. You're super different, right? So it became a game, even though it was challenging. And at the same time, I was going through a divorce and just a lot of stuff. I started asking, instead of I can't afford it, I just changed the classic question to how can I afford it? And I started becoming creative again. And I started coming up with ways we could pay for it. And sure enough, we started paying for it instead of it being an oppressor,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've told the story to my podcast people before about once when I'd had the end of a relationship and I was living in this beautiful flat in Sydney, Australia, overlooking the beach. And I really didn't want a flatmate. And my boyfriend moved out and I had this 2-bedroom place. And I thought, instead of thinking I can't afford it, I thought, how many articles a month do I have to write to pay for this place? And I worked it out and I was like, oh, I can do that. And honestly, it was a game changer. So that's something for anyone who's listening, like, how can I do that is a really good thing. Steve, if somebody is listening now and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to launch it, I'm going to launch it. What are your tips for people who are just on the verge? What do you do?
My answer to that has changed a lot over the years. um,
Okay.
you have to learn how to sell. Even somebody who doesn't have the most amazing offer, but they're good at what they do, you still can do pretty well for yourself if you just know how to sell. And if you don't know how to sell, learning marketing can sometimes be a distraction because marketing and sales are super different. Of the two, the one to really lean into first, I'm glad the first one that I leaned into was sales. I heard Robert Kiyosaki once say, he said, if you don't learn how to be an entrepreneur, you're never, or if you never learn how to sell, you're never going to be an entrepreneur. And I heard that and I was like, oh. So I went and I signed up to be a door-to-door sales guy for 2 summers because of that line. And I was also a telemarketer.
You're
It
doing
was
pest
good.
control or something, were you? I'm pretty sure I listened to a podcast from you this week
Yeah.
walking the dog, and you were talking about this and sales and marketing as well.
Yeah, I did pest control and I did security. And then when I was a telemarketer, I sold business to business text message services. This is all pre ClickFunnels. And I'm glad I learned how to sell because I learned how to handle rejection. I learned how to overcome an objection, and to realize they're different things too. I learned how to deliver a pitch. And it's kind of weird to try to go into entrepreneurship without learning how to sell just a little bit. But the better thing though was that I had to figure out how to deal with all the same things we started out with at the beginning of this, which is that my relationship with cash and money making was super wrong.
Do you know about manifesting? Do you believe in manifesting? Are you?
Yeah, very much actually. Marley is one of the strongest manifestors I've ever met. You know, my
Now,
girlfriend,
just
she's
tell
just
people who Marley is. Marley
yeah,
Jacks,
Marley's
right?
my girlfriend. She's a big YouTuber. She's becoming an actress right now. She's been networking in Hollywood, and so we're super into it. And we're super into it for a lot of reasons.
In manifesting, what made you decide to go, I'm a capitalist pig?
It's funny because I knew that if I wasn't the front runner for it, there was not going to be enough mentalities of people building businesses for profit. We would build businesses that nobody's actually succeeding, but we're busy 24/7. You know, it's really, I would say one of the best things of building a for-profit, on purpose, get as rich as you can business while still delivering insane value to everybody is that it opens up gaps in your own life so that you have space to do healing you can't even see because you're too busy.
Yeah.
That was one of the most unexpected benefits to making money I'd ever run into. I can't believe how much I've been able to work on myself because I'm a totally different guy. I've been building funnels for 10 years now. You know, I've been in the space 10 years, which blows my mind. But I mean, I'm a really different guy than I was yelling a lot back then.
Yeah, no, I can sense that you're different actually. Has
Yeah.
Marley influenced you?
We've definitely influenced each other. We've been together for about almost 4 years now, and we kind of went through this awakening journey at the same time. She was going through a divorce, and I was too, and we really wanted to make sure we were not trauma bonding or repeating any mistakes in the past, and so we've been very careful about that. To the point where we would take lists of why we shouldn't date each other to couples therapists and like all this. I mean, they're like, you guys are hilarious. You guys are gonna be peas in a pod. No one talks like this. So, um,
Yeah, no, that's very good. More aware you become, is your income increasing or are you becoming this sort of wafty person who's transcended the need for cash?
possibly a little bit of both. I had to figure out my fuel too. I mean, I'll just tell you, like 2019 came along and my life was becoming a mess. And I was an officer in the army, you know, and so you get celebrated for that. And I was applying that same energy and work to my business and my life and my work and relationships and friendships. And I really didn't have many close friends. And then the floor fell out from under me, went through a divorce and got kind of quiet. And that's when my buddy was like, you're a master at push energy. What you're about to go through is the school called pull energy. And I was like,
Wow.
that makes no sense to me at all. I was like, that doesn't make sense at all. And one night I got a little depressed and I was living in my fourth Airbnb because I didn't have a place to go. And I realized I like needed some serious help and talked to a psychiatrist. I'm very open, as you can tell. I will say anything to anybody on this stuff, but I went to talk to a
No, it's good
psychiatrist.
to seek help.
Yeah, they were like, look, you need to get on an SSRI. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. So I'm into 7 days into taking an antidepressant, not knowing what it is that I'm taking. Everything's starting to get dull. And
Uh-huh.
I'm not here to say, this is my own thing. Anyone who watches or listens to
Yeah.
this, my own experience getting help is always the right first answer. And so, but I had a buddy call me and he just swore at me like crazy. He said, "You are a creative genius. That's going to destroy you if you keep staying on it. You need to go into the psychedelic area." And I was like, no,
Oh.
never in my life would I have to ever go after that. I love my brain, not a chance. And he goes, "You're funny. Start studying." So I went deep on all the major ones, and that really changed my life. So we can fill in all the blanks.
Wow. I mean, I'm assuming psilocybin.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, it's such an
Ayahuasca,
interesting ayahuasca. Right. Okay.
a lot
Which
actually.
state do you live in the States?
One that I need to travel away from to do these
Oh,
things.
okay. Rightio. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's an interesting area. I was talking to friends on the weekend, and in Australia, they've legalized psilocybin for use with depression for the simple reason that it works. And the Prime Minister there, Anthony Albanese, it's quite a nanny state in Australia, but he said, and he's quite, I mean, he's a Laborite, he's a what you call a Democrat, but he said, look, the thing is, I know it's a bit radical, but the proof is irrefutable, and it would be irresponsible not to allow people who suffer from depression to have access to this, because one journey of it can, cure lifelong depression. So it's a very interesting subject.
Yeah,
Okay, interesting. So you've really been on a journey. So no
very.
wonder you've got your capitalist pig t-shirt under this sort of Coachella style,
My poncho.
Arizona hippie. Let's go to the let's interesting. Okay, so Steve Larsen is morphing.
A lot. Yeah, I'd say that a lot. My daughters are much happier. I mean, I just another thing he taught me is he's like, you got to learn how to connect. So I'm trying to bring a lot more connection into this marketplace and industry, because there's this dumb mentality that you know about called this, the guru on the mountain. But I think that there's this inappropriate expectation with entrepreneurship that it's a lonely route. And because we look for it, we see it when it's not true, and we create it. And loneliness can be or entrepreneurship can be the exact opposite and the most connecting. It's a wonderful place to meet people and be very connected to the world.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to also put that out there too.
And another thing that I'd love people to know, which I've learned through things like going to Funnel Hacking Live, is that a lot of entrepreneurs are amazing people, and in terms of, we talk a lot of, in my world, we talk a lot about manifesting. In terms of manifesting, these guys and women are actual manifestors. One Australian author, actually, Denise Duffield Thomas, who talks a lot about money mindset, she said to me, but yeah, Yasmin, marketing is manifesting. And I'm like, yes, it is. If you had one tip for aspiring marketers out there, or aspiring people who want to run their own business and still need to do their own marketing at this stage, what would be your one tip for people?
It would be to learn the frameworks and models of those who've succeeded ahead of time. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. College really hurt me in that sense, where I was taught in my entrepreneurship classes that you can only ever create something that nobody's ever seen before. You can only ever sell something that no one's ever seen before. Otherwise,
Well,
you're walking
even
in.
we talk about the blue oceans and the red oceans.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't. It's actually not true. If this is it took me 34 tries over 5 years to get something to work, and I can easily look back on those attempts. So many attempts. Oh my gosh. And I can look back at them and see that I was still trying to be like overly creative when 80% of business is the exact same across all markets and industries and all products that you could ever think of. And so it really is a skill set that's learnable. It's not something you're born with. You go learn business skills, you learn marketing skills, and then there'll come a point down the road where you start to gain these little insights. and you start to fill in gaps that the person you were following didn't. And that's where you get to start creating your own route. And so
Yeah.
creativity is very powerful, but for a long time, I kept trying to be a creative
Yeah.
instead of
I
just
think
being a
Anthony
seller.
Robbins Anthony Robbins calls it modeling, doesn't he? So
Yeah,
it's like you model yourself off someone until you find your footing to the point that you can then have your own voice. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, brilliant, Steve. Thank you so much. So tell people where they can find you. I would say go and listen to everything that he's ever done. He'll tell the story about how he got himself bootstrapping on his bicycle to the first funnel hacking thing and basically talked his way into a dream job, and it's all gone from there. But tell people where they can find you and how they can find you, and your podcasts and all that, because they're brilliant.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Actually, the best is just stevejlarsen.com. Larsen. Yep, stevejlarsen.com. And that's really it. I'm on my 5th podcast show now. I just got tired of being locked only to business topics, so that's why the new Steve J. Larsen show exists. That's really it.
Right. Well, I need to check it out because I haven't heard all of it. But you did blow my mind on the most recent one that I heard, which was the difference between selling and marketing, and
Yes.
how the blog post is actually your hook, or the live you do is your hook. Because one thing you'll learn if you go down this route, anyone who's listening, hook, story, offer. And it never made sense to me. This hook, is it the headline? No, it's actually how you get people to the page.
Yeah. I'm so
That blew
glad.
my
Yeah, you're
mind as I
listening.
walked around the park. I'm like, finally, I understand. I could never quite get my head around that one. All
Oh,
right, well, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much, and all the best. And
it's
go and find Steve if you're starting your own business.
thank you so much. This had so much fun here. This is great.